So James is going to be eating a tuna sandwich with, not with mayo, but with avocado instead. And he still hasn't eaten his pineapple and pear. And he's having it on this bread, which when I picked it out, I thought it was great because I looked at the first ingredients and they're great. But then once you get down to here, well, you get enriched wheat flour, and that's not too bad. But get some corn syrup solids and some canola oil. I don't know why they even stuck that in, because most of the ingredients are quality ingredients at the beginning, right? Which would be most of the ingredients. Anyway. But it is a sprouted whole grain wheat bread, and most of the ingredients are good, so I don't know how I feel about that. But James will be talking about The Apprentice by Greg Miller, and I will be trying to continue to get warm, because well, we did some recycling today, but I haven't been warm lately, and I have well, I get it's my circulation, it's bad, so my hands and my feet are numb most of the time, freezing, and my lips are blue, so just trying to fix that. And how's the sandwich?
Pretty good.
Would it have been better with mayo, do you think?
No.
No.
I can't stand mayo. Well.
Anyway, so how did you like the book?
I'm only about halfway finished.
I have to return it.
I know. Anyway.
James been busy learning Mayan. Didn't have enough time to read Trump.
Well, I got halfway through. It's about 200 pages. Anyway. Basically what I knew already.
So no shockers in there?
Well, I'm sure for some people it's kind of shocking. There's a lot of super right-wingers and left-wingers who think there's no collusion and stuff like that. I knew before the election the fix was in. I knew when they were having the WikiLeaks, Assange.
Yeah.
You could see who they were going after. Obama. And I'm going, left-wingers should kind of pick their targets, right? You go after Republicans. And, you know, Snowden, same sort of thing. He ends up in Russia. How does that happen, you know? I knew Russians were behind him. It's not a big secret. I knew Trump was basically a mafia mug from the 80s. You know, anyone who doesn't understand that. Because, what can I say? And, you know, the Russians are basically, I mean, Putin's the biggest mafia boss in the world. What can I say? I don't think he's even has to have a meeting with Trump. He just does stuff for him. And Trump's so stupid, he goes along with it. Incredible. Bernie Sanders, you know, like set up by Trump and try and divide the Democratic Party. It worked like a charm. I knew Sanders was getting slush money from Republican supporters. There's no way. He's not even a Democrat. He's an independent. You know, the funny thing is, all that money would have just got, if he'd actually been nominated by the Democrats, would have been pulled out from him, just like a rug being pulled out from someone trying to stand. He would not have even pulled 10%. He wouldn't have got 10% of the vote. He would have got massively creamed. The Russians probably have stuff on Bernie Sanders. Bernie was a lefty, a serious lefty in the 60s. And either Bernie Sanders or some of his buddies, some of his fellow travelers, shall we say, in the 60s would have had dealings with the agency that Bozo eventually came to head, Putin. He'd have all sorts of dirt on Bernie Sanders and or his confreres in the 60s, and that would have been coming out in the election. Wow. And people were going, Bernie Sanders had a better chance of beating Donald Trump. Not even in his dreams.
I wonder what that was.
Someone chucking stuff in the garbage.
Oh.
The car was just going by, so it sounded as if the car was hitting something.
Yes. It just too happened at the same time. So I got
Sometimes
confused.
weird sorts of things like that happen. But yeah. The head of the FBI at the end of the election, a week or two before the election, he's saying they're probing Clinton. Doesn't mention that they're probing Trump on something way worse, on colluding with Russia. Who is he? Oh, he's a lifelong Republican, right? He ends up being head of the FBI under Trump, and he gets dumped for his colluding with them. And then Mueller, in the last couple of weeks, basically exonerates Bozo of colluding with the Russians. Dude is a lifelong Republican. If you're an FBI guy, what party do you support? You support the Republicans. You're a right-winger. If you're a police guy, you're a right-winger. And you got all sorts of stupid left-wingers going around. Deep state will save us from Donald Trump. Mueller will save us. He's part of the deep state. Wake up. Mueller, if he'd wanted to, he could have kept on this investigation all the way down through Donald Trump's 2 terms. And he's going to make it to 2 terms. And who knows if there'll be an election after his 2nd term.
So the book you recommend or no?
I'd recommend it to someone who could actually read.
Well, a lot of people have it on hold. That's why I can't renew it for you. So they hopefully they like it.
Yeah.
I borrow these books out for James, but he often doesn't have time for them. He has time for the great courses that we watch together.
Sometimes not even to read the book.
Sometimes not even.
Yes, so it goes.
That's okay. I try to keep you entertained. Bring home stuff that you might like.
Yeah, can't say I like that, but it's important reading. I don't know. The thing is, this stuff shouldn't have to come out. People actually did proper reading, background reading, which is just like reading the news, and then actually applying the gray stuff between their ears. You don't need this stuff. You've actually figured things out even before they happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I knew what Putin was like before he came to power. I'd actually read about Bozo. It's 20 years ago.
I don't know what people do with their time.
They waste reading. I don't know what, there are lots of people go around reading books, the great books and stuff like that. And they can't read.
They
Or
you think
functional
they're just
illiterate.
not,
They're looking for they got a crazy worldview, and they're looking for a validation. They don't find the validation. Then they write nasty little things even if it's a library book, in the margins and stuff like that. If it's validation, they'll put amen and stuff like that.
maybe you're right.
Well, I've had library books.
Well, I get very
I've got
frustrated
them.
when I find
Bought them
library
at
books
second
that,
hand. Exactly.
yeah, people have written in them.
Stupid
So
fake
frustrating.
left wingers.
I find the worst people about it are the management people, because I get the great courses out, and most of the great courses are pristine when I get them. Now, some of them have been well used, and I know this because the discs are skipping or whatever, and it's just so many people have went through them. Like, say things like was it Greek or Latin? I can't remember. A great course. Probably Latin. I can't remember. A good instructor. Very good.
It is good.
But we had problems with a few of the discs skipping, and another one we got out, the Spanish one, and that one's skipping too. And I think that's just so many people were interested in it, right?
Yeah.
They really used it, and things wear down like that, right?
No, when you and I have.
No.
I don't know how people bust up
No, we keep things
DVDs
and
and
they could
CDs.
last
I don't know what their
years.
problem is.
I don't know. But anyway, I think it's just how people are raised, honestly.
I don't know. I think a lot of people got too much money or something like that. I never had money. When I got something like that, it was precious, like records,
me too.
They had.
Yeah.
They eventually came with 2 sleeves, right?
Yeah.
That little paper sleeve
Yeah.
that you slip inside. I'd always put those things in there. My records last. I had some records that skipped because sometimes you'd get them and they'd be warped. They'd skip or whatever. But I can remember some I got weren't quite centered. And they'd skip a little bit. It's a different thing than kind of frisbeeing them around. So I don't care what people do their own stuff. When they're getting stuff from the library,
Yeah, I wish they would.
put it back in the
Well, there's
package,
different
in the
types of
container.
people. Like, I found if you borrow anything by Tom Waits from the library, it's going to be just trash. Like, it'll look like they ran it through a lawnmower before they put it back in the case to bring it to the library.
And they're as slavish as Tom Waits pretends to be.
I don't know. It's very frustrating for me.
Fascinating.
Like, I've gotten CDs from there that they're cracked. How does that happen? I don't understand.
People. I like to think it's a vast minority, but who knows?
But yeah, the great courses that are management related, those come back, people have written in pen in the books.
Brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant.
I think it's the instructors, honestly. I think they're accustomed to writing up people's papers and just, I think it's a sort of, I think it's a power thing. I think they want to feel like they have power over other people. They have right to scribble up their work, which sometimes people need it.
Hey, when I own a book, I scribble it up. No?
Don't do that.
No? The books that the books that I go through the most, I don't think you'll ever go through. It doesn't matter.
No,
The thing is, I'm trying to get them into my mind.
I know.
And that's the way. An author couldn't usually ask for more, except sometimes I'm not very complimentary when I'm putting it into my mind. That's the way it goes. I'm trying to get some sort of use out of it. So, for example, Kenneth Kitchen's book on the Third Intermediate Period in Egypt. I own it. It's just gone through the way people should go through their Bibles, but I'm not a true believer. I'm not any any sort of believer in what Kenneth Kitchen has to say. The weird thing is, whenever there's a controversy, it doesn't matter if it's in Egyptology generally or in this third intermediate period, the thing that basically doesn't exist. It is supposed to be about 500 years long. It's actually 60, let me see, 011, let me see, 9876, yeah, 64 years long. It's 64 years long instead of 500 years long. And the weird thing is, he'll say something like, so-and-so says this, so-and-so says that. It's this. For sure. Of course. I'll give an example. There's a king of a place called Mitanni, a Hurrian king.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And they date him to about 1350 BC. I've actually found it mentioned in the Assyrian Annals. And their dating is up about 500 years. And it's, how does it go? It's like Tiwaza, blank Tiwaza. So that's how you read it. There's one symbol they don't know how to read. Mm-hmm. You can read it in 3 different ways. And you can read it as Kurtiawaza, Shatiawaza, or Matiawaza. And so Kenneth Kitchen comes out in his, I don't think it's in a different book, but he says, for sure, it's one of those 3. I can't remember which. It's generally accepted. I don't know how. I don't think it's generally accepted. So, when I'm learning cuneiform, I'm skeptical of anyone who'd say it's just, here's the symbol, and it can be read in several different ways, and not just 3. And, like I'd already dated stuff to 850 based on lots of other identifications. And I'm trying to find this dude Matiawaza in the Assyrian Annals. And I'd already recognized, you see, there was this one name, Lapturu, in the Assyrian Annals. And he's given as the son of Tubush, or Tupush. And when I say or, it's not I'm wondering what it is. You've got those alternative readings. You might have more. And I recognize Tubush is an attempt by the Assyrians to write the name that was written in an attempted fashion by the Hittites on the other side of things. We're not actually getting the native speakers reading on it. Because the native would be Mitannian or Hurrian. It's a totally different language from the Indo-European Hittite and the Semitic Akkadian that the Assyrians use. So I'm looking at this name, Tubush, and I'm going, yeah, I know the way the cuneiform is written, even though I haven't really studied it or anything like that. The BU would be an attempt to write a WU or MU or just UU, something like that, a long U. So that would be Tushrata, just the first half of his name, first part of his name. And he was the king of the Mitannians. But instead of being dated as the Egyptologists and the Hittitologists following the Egyptologists, roughly 1350 BC, a little bit earlier, or around there, it would be dated to a little bit before 850 BC. So here it is. It's Lapturu, son of Tubu, in the area where the Hittites were messing around with the Hurrians. And I'm going, I can't find Matiawaza or Kurtiawaza or Shatiawaza anywhere there. I cannot find him. And I'm noticing the Assyrians, Ashur-nasir-pal, 3 times he's taken on this Lapturu, son of Tubush. And I'm going, geez, Tubush, that's Tushrata. Who is this dude? And then when I finally started looking really carefully at the cuneiform script, I'm looking at it. You can read that first syllable in Matiawaza, Kurtiawaza, Shatiawaza as L-A-T, not just K-U-R or S-H-A-T, or M-A-T. Oh, things change. Latiawaza, what you've got there is Lapturu, but the two T's, what that indicates is what's called gemination. That's what the Hittites did. They heard the P and the T together, and they did what the Italians do when they try to say doctor. They say dottore. They geminate the K sound, spelled with a C, and a T together, and they make two T's out of it. And that's what the Hittites did. Understand? They're hearing a word in a foreign language, and they hear a PT, and they go, that's like a TT. There you go. Kenneth Kitchen's going, for sure, it's Shadiwaza, Kurdiwaza. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's one of those three. For sure, it's that. He's not an expert in Akkadian stuff. He's an expert in Egyptian writing. He's not an expert in the cuneiform script. So what I'm telling you is, I can say it is for sure, but that's based on other data, because my redating dates 3 solar eclipses that are mentioned in traditions that are dated according to the Egyptian dating system, and the flunkies who are dating this stuff according to the Egyptian dating system cannot date those solar eclipses. They have to be total. That's what the experts on eclipses say. They have to be total in order for people who can't predict them to notice them. And a total eclipse occurs any place in the world once every 375 years. When you get one eclipse dated, one solar eclipse dated, you have nailed your chronology. I've got 3. The odds against me being right, that's against me being right, are astronomical. They're in the order of 1 to 1,000,000. That's why I say that reading of Latiawaza is guaranteed, and that's an accent on every one of those syllables. Guaranteed, exclamation mark at the end, and also upside down, a la the Spanish, at the beginning. Guaranteed. But it's not because I'm going with some sort of crazy reading about one particular individual and stuff like that. It's redating for a whole bunch of individuals that ultimately gets confirmed, and that's firmed on it, confirmed by data, astronomical data, outside of the tradition. Enough said? Yes, enough said. How's that?
There you go. I got you talking for once.
Yeah, a little bit. I had to vent.
The subject.
Oh, I talked a lot about that.
But it was the last part was completely unrelated. I don't even know how it came up.
Oh, it's just I have to vent. I get annoyed about this sort of stuff. And around this time of year, it's kind of like almost an anniversary for when I started doing the chronological research.
The next review you have to do is Democracy in Chains.
Who wrote that one?
I don't know. I've had it out for... I've already renewed it 3 times. Okay. I can't renew it again.
Democracy in Chains. Okay. I know I started another book. Maybe that's the one. Okay. I can't remember the title.
I think it has a black cover.
Okay.
I don't know. That's the next one, though.